Welcome back, everyone. In this video, you're going to see a wild SWAT shootout with an armed barricaded suspect, and one partner almost shoots their other partner. This is the Shots Fired podcast. I'm Mark Redlich. This is Kyle Schoberg, and across the table, we have Patrick Cox coming in studio with us.
He always looks so thrilled. Do you see the look on his face?
I know. He's just like...
I'm trying to be serious for you guys' show.
You don't have to be serious. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
You're a very comedic guy.
Yeah, nothing's serious, okay? Other than when we start talking about this video, he's a little serious.
Yeah.
Okay, so this video is an armed barricaded suspect. SWAT team shows up. Guy ends up getting into his vehicle with a shotgun. Tries to run down the deputies. Shots are fired. It gets very chaotic very quickly, and there's a lot of learning lessons points to break down from it. You guys are both former full-time SWAT guys. This is a perfect video for you to break down and to show the listeners and the viewers, whoever may be on a SWAT team deploys out in this type of capacity, just some different tactics and things that could have been done differently on this. And let's watch the video, and then we'll circle back and we're going to break it down.
I think I've been... Stay on the ground!
Let me see your hands! We're good, we're good, we're good! Let's go, let's go! Get ready to take off! Fire! Seize! Stop moving! Stop moving! Stop moving! Stop moving! No, 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 no. Yes, yes. Dogs hit. Dogs hit.
All right, so we just watched the video, and there's a lot that comes out of this. And so you guys are both former full-time SWAT guys. I'm going to open the floor up to both of you to kind of talk about the setup that we have right now from this drone footage. Now, obviously, the SWAT team was already called out for this guy. I want to say he had shot at deputies when deputies responded to the original call for service, which got the SWAT team there. The guy barricaded inside the house. He now, where we picked up from, he gets inside his truck with his dog. He was armed with a shotgun, and he goes to back up towards the deputies. Why don't you guys talk about, from a SWAT team standpoint, their initial setup with their vehicles and kind of how they set themselves up for this?
So I'll just piggyback off of what Kyle was saying earlier about having the drone footage, the body camera footage on something like this. I think is super beneficial because you can go back. And I think hopefully in a situation like this, they were able to debrief it, use that footage, and kind of learn from what they saw from this, especially with the drone setup and the body camera footage. A few of the things that I picked up on watching this is it seemed like there was a lack of communication. And situations like this where they're leaving cover and not staying together as a team, there's no real team movements. I think that was kind of glaring to me when I saw that, and I hope that that's something that they picked up on as well, and implement that into their training.
What I'm looking at here is we were lucky enough, Patrick and I, to be on a full-time SWAT team. We trained all the time together as a team. Like, we read our body language. You knew exactly what what each member of the team would do. Most likely this team's probably an ancillary position. So these officers have other responsibilities. An incident comes, they're paged, and they all come together. But that still goes back to the importance of training. And you can still do that when you're not deployed or not training. You can still have that communication. I think what's important to point out on these situations when you're deployed is that everyone's going to have a responsibility or should have a responsibility. Each person has a role that should be totally defined and discussed before you actually arrive on scene. So I would like to have seen here, which we're not going to get the backstory of the back radio traffic, but I would like to have known, which when we go through this whole video and we debrief it, it's not done. But I would like to see an arrest team already set up. Those members of the team actually know who they are going to be. If you're going to be on a rifle, if you're going to be voice, or if you're going to be radio, if you're less lethal, like that should be very much defined. And as we progress through this video, we're going to notice that that doesn't actually happen.
Yeah, it looks like everybody was armed lethal when he gets in the truck and he starts to back up. It doesn't seem like they have designated less lethal or an arrest team or who's going to be lethal. It's a little tricky because he gets in his truck and we can see here he is backing his vehicle up towards the deputies, and then they all, obviously you can see in the video, they all scattered because they don't want to get hit by the vehicle, which is at which point they open up fire on him, probably striking him multiple times in the vehicle. When you watch the video, though, you can see the officers are shooting from behind one of their patrol vehicles. They're actually shooting multiple rounds through their own windshield into the suspect's windshield, which we know shooting through windshields, your rounds deflect. I mean, the rounds aren't going where you want them to go, generally speaking. So they basically light up their own patrol vehicle trying to shoot into this guy's truck. So let's just like walk through it from there. So shots are fired. Patrick, you mentioned they all kind of scatter. Nobody's communicating. There's no team movements. Like that's where, if we fast forward the video a little bit, that's where everything to me kind of goes haywire a little bit, because now everyone's kind of doing what they want to do. People are just shooting their guns. One guy's yelling, "Cease fire," which we'll talk about that in a minute. You got one officer armed with a handgun when she has her rifle slung. So she's using an offensive weapon in a defensive scenario. And at that distance, I mean, there's no way I'm having my handgun out, especially if I have a rifle slung already. So let's just talk about from the time that shots are fired and kind of everything that's going on to their approach to the guy.
Well, I think you hit on it when you hear the voice, someone saying, "Cease fire, cease fire." And I think something like that is very concerning because the team is so spread out. You don't know what everybody's seen at that point. And they've already used lethal force on this guy. He's from what we talked about earlier. He's already fired at the officers. And it sounds like he's trying to get this back under control. But when you have a group that's spread out, someone might say, "Hey, this guy's on." You know, he had a shotgun. Maybe he has a handgun too, and they see that and they're trying to address that. You have to know what these people are looking at when you're giving those kind of commands, and you're telling them not to shoot at something. Everyone kind of left cover. No one was behind it. They're kind of out in the open. I imagine that they're still going to keep the guy in their sights, but you're saying, "Cease fire, cease fire, cease fire." It's kind of good.
Yeah, no, I just you do see this happen in videos where you hear people say "cease fire," and I actually was involved in my first officer involved shooting where a supervisor on scene was also yelling "cease fire," and I've always wondered where does that come from? It's almost like whoever is saying "cease fire" is has a designated firing squad, and it's something that you pre-planned, and then it was all of a sudden okay, it's done, now cease fire. I don't know where that comes from, but you see it all the time in videos. I don't know if maybe these people with prior military experience, I don't even know that they train that in the military. I don't know, but it's odd.
I've never been in a situation where we've trained cease fire, because Patrick, you mentioned it earlier. It's you're telling at that point, to me, that officer is in control of when you're shooting and when you're not shooting. And when he actually says cease fire, you can see it. He can't see the vehicle at that point. And you mentioned maybe he has a handgun. Who knows? Other people may have a different viewpoint, and you're no, this person is still a threat, and someone's telling you not to shoot anymore. Do we train that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, then how do you then testify or give a statement or whatever, whether it's in court or in your IA, you're telling everyone to cease fire, but you can't there's no way he could see what was going on where the other officers were shooting, because they had a better visual of the truck than he did, because he's in the back. So yeah, I don't know where that comes from. It's definitely, unless in his mind he thought that they shouldn't be shooting in the first place, and he's trying to gain control back of what's going on because everybody's shooting, and he's trying to just get everybody to stop shooting.
Yeah, and one of the other things that kind of was glaring to me was their need to approach him so quickly. This guy was armed. He's fired at you.
Mm-hmm.
You address him with lethal force, but now you want to move right up to him. They don't clear the vehicle. They kind of have some sort of view in it, but you need eyes in that vehicle. There could have been someone hiding on the floorboards. They fired a bunch of rounds into that vehicle. There could have been a family member or somebody who was trying to take cover. Clear that unknown, call him back to you. If he can't come, formulate a plan, then make the approach.
Yeah, and at this point, he's not mobile anymore. And initially when I was talking about like roles and responsibilities, he's already out, he's already down on the ground. And here's the thing is, we have really good overhead footage of this, which means an officer is operating a camera system. That officer should be communicating, zooming in on that person and saying, and starting that the coordination portion. Like, I really think whoever the observer is for that drone should be communicating, like, stand by, hold on, like, let's slow things down and look at it. And these officers, you're right, are approaching. And at that point, that's where you need leadership and someone to say, hey, and we talked about before about pre-planning, knowing your partners and who you work with, immediately dropping your rifle, getting rid of it, stowing it, or not even having it. You mentioned it earlier, which I thought was really, really good insight, is not everybody needs a rifle. Like, you can have a less lethal, you can have hands, and you need that. And at this point, when you're approaching, like, I would just stow something, and you need to identify, hey, your hands, I'm lethal, I'm less lethal, like, let's move up, where's our shield? Like, you need to have some coordination. And to me, this was just kind of just way too fast.
It just I think it happened really quickly. You can hear in the tone of their voices, they're all really amped up. The one officer with her handgun chooses not to use her rifle. I don't know if it's sympathetic fire. She trips, falls, gets up, and then she actually starts shooting also into the truck. And unless she saw something that you can't see in the body cam footage, obviously, which you can't. You're not going to see what she sees through the lens of a body cam. We know that, but you don't know if that's sympathetic fire. But then she actually almost shoots her partner in the head, and you can see it startles him. He turns and looks at her, and she says, "It's all good." And he's probably thinking, "Yeah, right. You almost just shot me in the head." Gosh. And the part of it is, so the guy gets out of the truck, and she just fires one single shot at him. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that also was a sympathetic fire or she thought she saw him armed with a gun. He was not armed with a firearm when he came out of the truck. The firearm was located inside the cab of the truck, but and then his dog jumps out. But sorry, go ahead.
I'll tell you, she does trip, and if you look at the field, how much grass there is, it's going to be hard to tell where your feet placement are. I mean, I could understand the trip.
Plus, I think it's on a little hill or something.
Yeah, but I would say that was like we said, like, you got to be able to articulate shooting, but that was a really good one single shot that dropped that guy from a distance. And she was the most calm level person of all those officers.
She was the only one not screaming.
Yeah.
That whole sequence of events was pretty wild, and the partner that almost took one to the head, he got pretty lucky. But then you see in the video, they're all kind of running around. I think they're all in shock a little bit about what just happened. Obviously, anytime you're in a shooting, it's shocking. But they kind of start pushing each other. They're doing a lot of hand movements. Patrick, you brought up a super good point, and that's one of the officers kept taking his hand off his weapon to either touch another team member, give direction, or use it to key up his mic. And you brought up a good point of, like, where is your setup for your push to talk on your vest? I mean, you shouldn't have to take your hand off your weapon to manipulate your radio.
Well, at least your master grip. So he's, if you need to hold that, while you still got that master grip where you can still
pull the trigger,
index the safety and everything else, you're pulling it off, what you would foregrip, work your push to talk. I tried to set mine up in a situation where I could access it from either side, but he's pulling it off and he's running up, he's touching people. And one of the big things that we'd always do in training was, especially when you're coming up, you're cross covering. If you're the guy up there who's got eyes on everything, and say it's, you're trying to be quiet while you're doing this, we're going to skids it. We're going to use it with the dog, but using hand signals, we never took our hand off of our master grip and gave hand signals. It was always our offhand. And it was like something that was just ingrained. And it goes back to training, because then when it happens, you go right back to your training, especially when you're kind of overwhelmed by these events.
What about, what do you guys think from a SWAT team perspective or a team movement like that? Like, one of them is doing a lot of touching. They're all doing a lot of touching on each other, but one guy is like focused on the truck with his rifle, and the team member comes up and he's like pushing him. He's like, go, and he's like, I don't know. I mean, is that something you guys would do? Or I personally don't like that. I mean, if he's trying to take an accurate shot and you're sitting there pushing on him, I mean,
no, I don't think you're hurrying the situation. You might end up escalating that situation even further. At that point, shots are fired. This guy's out of the vehicle. He's down on the ground. Okay, start taking it a step by step. Is everyone accounted for? Is everyone on your bunch of shots are fired? Is everyone on your team, are they okay? All right, what are we going to do now? We're going to clear this vehicle. It's the unknown. We're going to move up, clear that vehicle. It looks like they could see probably most of it, but no one opened that passenger door. They looked into it. They could have cleared it. Now we're going to use that as cover. We're going to call him back. What was wrong with calling him back to you? Why would you move up to this guy who's armed once, already fired at officers? Why are you hurrying that situation? You're escalating that probably more than you need to.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's probably because we're on the same team and we work together. Is that when you're in the front and you got the closest eyes on something, you're processing and taking in everything, and someone comes up behind you and then grabs you. I've never been into the touching and pushing on someone. You're trying to take a sided shot or potential sided shot, and you have someone like yanking on you and moving you. Like, what if there's a hostage in there and you have someone, you're about to take a shot and someone grabs you? Like, I'm not a fan of that. And then you're right, like that person saying, hey, move. Like, you should be saying, hey, I'm here when you're ready, and then have it just like wait for that person because maybe they see something you don't, or say, you ready? Like, we need to go. Like, have that communication, not just rush up and then force that person to rush.
Well, and I think we talk about the touching, and especially once you enter a house, touching goes on where a lot of it was as you're moving down a hallway and the number two person.
Yeah, you're ready to go.
Or, hey, we don't have anybody. And then Mark would grab me, hold me up. But I can't think of a time where they were pushing you forward.
Yeah, well, you're right. And you're right. We did do that. But you're talking about close, confined spaces where you can easily take a shot if you needed to. But in this, you have a long distance between
the
that
suspect,
and you are.
I think too, in a situation where we are having to give some type of tap or something to let the team know in front of you, like, hey, we're all up, go ahead or whatever. Like, that's why you do like a little squeeze of the buttocks or
what?
Yeah, I mean, oh, you didn't do that? you didn't give the old good game.
It was usually like a tap on the back.
Yeah, a tap or squeeze a leg or something. But you're not like shoving their position where they're have a rifle shoulder to throw them off balance.
Well, especially when that guy's in front of you. He might see something that you don't, and there might be a threat there, and you're now driving him toward that. And you're going to escalate that situation maybe farther than it needs to go at that point.
What I actually really like in this, though, is one officer actually keyed in on the dog and said, hey, the dog's been hit. Because if you've ever been around a dog that's been shot, like, that dog acts way different. I was actually on a call for service where one of our canine officers, or the homeowner's dog was attacking the canine, and we were literally like within a foot of this thing, and two officers were shooting that dog to protect the canine dog. It was right next to me, and then the dog took off, and it was like, dude, you got to watch that dog because that's been injured and it's going to act different. So I do like the fact that they were calling out not only dog, but the dog's been hit, to be like very aware of it.
Yeah. Do you think they were calling that out though for that reason, or do you think they were just saying, hey, the dog's been shot? I would just venture to guess they were probably just saying the dog was shot. I like what you're saying, and it's a good learning point of, like, you injure a dog, it could potentially bite you. It's in pain. You don't know what it's going to do, but.
Or maybe they're saying, because it was a big dog, like a Rottweiler, maybe they're saying, like, hey, the dog's been hit, to be like, hey, less concerned. Like, this dog's not super violent. It's already hit, and like kind of slowing down. Maybe like.
Yeah. So talking about, like, okay, the dude's down. you already talked about it, Patrick, but like we are very against if you're in a shooting, especially somebody that's been armed and already fired at the cops, to just immediately run up to them because they've been shot. Like we teach in our class, come up with some type of game plan after a shooting, either with a shield, a car, like whatever you have access to make your approach on that guy, or but some type of plan and communicating with your team, not just running up to the person because you have no idea if they're still armed. You don't even know if they've been hit or not. I've seen videos where you think someone's been shot. It happened in SAC where you guys work. It was a shooting in a parking lot, and they thought the guy was shot. And as they're making their approach, he pops up and he's like starts shooting again. So that happened. I mean, where you guys work, you may not remember it, but it was a few years ago. You just never know. So yeah, we're big on, hey, come up with some type of plan, communicate with your partners, call people back to you if they don't want to come. Let's say that guy was still in the truck. Calling that person out of the vehicle to come back to you. And if he doesn't, you're working with a vehicle barricade at that point.
Yeah.
So
slow it down.
yeah, just
Especially after
slowing
those
it down.
shots are fired, slow it down.
Which is hard. It's easier said than done, but
Well, that's where training in the team communication and having somebody that is in a way in charge or overseeing it says, hold on. Like, is everybody, you just had like 40 rounds shot. Like, is everybody okay? Step back. Like, we need to create a plan now. We have that drone. Let's bring that thing down, start zooming in on that thing, communicate with whoever's seeing that. Your hands, you have a rifle, put that in the car. Like, there's no other threats out there. This is the only suspect. You don't need a rifle. We already have lethal cover. We have somebody at a distance, like basically overwatch, and then start making your plan to move up.
Well, and they're at an unknown house, right? You don't know who else is in that house.
yeah, there's multiple structures too around there.
Everybody concentrated on the suspect. Nobody turned
up,
back
yeah.
around. You know, hey, I got to cover your guys' back. Somebody should have taken up a position where they can see if anyone's come in or they heard. You know, how many times where there's gunfire, people come out of their house. People, you know, and if this guy's a family member or something else, you got family members pouring out of that house. You guys all don't want your back to them when that happens. You know, hey, start holding them back. You know, address that as it comes to. Maybe they're not a threat, but you still want to know that they're there.
That is a great point. You're right. And nobody even paid attention to any of those structures. And most of the team had their back to that structure when they were coming around on that side there between the house and the suspect. It's a great point.
I think it's a great video to watch, even from a patrol standpoint. That could have easily happened with patrol cops, but even from a SWAT team to watch that video and then recreate that scenario and train that so that if something like that were to happen, at least you have a team that's on the same page instead of everybody doing kind of their own thing. So, Tactical Tim, did you have anything you wanted to add? No?
He never does.
Yeah, he's so shy every time someone else is here.
Yeah.
So every time we turn the camera on, he's like dead quiet. It's weird.
Yeah, he doesn't want to say anything. I noticed he's got some shears in his vest now, though.
Yeah.
That's good. He's kind of prepared.
Yeah, and he's got his night vision goggles
Oh,
now.
he
So
did
yeah,
get
he's
those
good to
on.
go.
We need a tourniquet, a couple more things.
Yeah. Anyways, all right, next time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, not sit here and beat a dead horse, but great video to debrief. Talk about some training points. If you're watching or listening, take some of these points or whatever and go to your training and talk about this stuff. So,
Yep. All right. Stay safe and be smart.
see you guys.